After a painful 20-hour labor, my husband grabbed the birth certificate and said, "Our baby will have my mother's name, not yours." I protested, but he sneered, "You don't get a say." The nurse glanced at me and whispered, "Want me to tell him the truth?" My heart pounded as his world crumbled before him. My husband, Mark, not his real name, and I had been together for 6 years, married for 3. I thought we had a solid relationship. I was wrong. I should have seen the warning signs. I really should have. From the moment I met Mark's mom, Susan, I knew she didn't like me. She was the kind of woman who made every conversation about herself, acted like the world owed her something, and treated her son like he was the second coming of Christ. At first, it was small things. Snide comments, backhanded compliments, little digs at my appearance, my background, even my career. But over time, it got worse. She needed to have control over everything in Mark's life. When we got engaged, she made a fuss because Mark proposed with a ring he picked instead of letting her choose. When we bought our first house, she criticized the neighborhood, the layout, and the color of the walls, like it was her home. She would drop by, unannounced, and act like she lived with us. And every time I complained, Mark dismissed it. "She's just like that. You know how she is. She means well." No, she didn't. She wanted to be the most important woman in his life, and the fact that he had chosen me made her seethe. I thought it would get better when I got pregnant. I was so wrong. The second Susan found out we were expecting, she went into overdrive. Suddenly, she had opinions on everything. She hated the baby names I liked. She insisted I should follow her pregnancy diet, which was ridiculous. She even tried to tell me what OB-GYN to go to, as if my own doctor wasn't good enough. And Mark? Mark just let her. He was always a mama's boy, but I never realized how deep it went. When I was 6 months pregnant, Susan made a comment that still makes my blood boil. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I hope the baby looks like Mark's side of the family. Your features wouldn't suit a girl." Mark was right there and said nothing. That was the first time I felt a real shift in my marriage. Fast forward to my due date. Labor was brutal. I was in pain for 20 hours. My body felt like it was being ripped apart, and Mark? He was barely there. I don't mean physically, he was in the room, but mentally, emotionally, checked out. He played on his phone, took calls from his mom, left the room twice to get coffee while I was screaming in pain. And then, finally, our daughter was born. I barely had a moment to hold her before Mark took the birth certificate paperwork from the nurse's hand. He didn't ask me about the name. He didn't even look at me. "Our baby will have my mother's name," he said, like it was a fact. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I was exhausted, weak, still shaking, and I managed to whisper, "No. We already chose a name together." He gave me a smirk. A smirk. "You don't get a say." I felt like the air had been knocked out of my chest. Before I could even process what was happening, the nurse, an older woman with sharp eyes, leaned in close and whispered, "Want me to tell him the truth?" I turned my head to look at her, my heart pounding. I had no idea what she meant. And then I saw her expression. She knew something. And whatever it was about to change everything. I felt my heart hammer in my chest as I looked at the nurse. She knew something. Mark, still smirking like he had won some kind of game, was too busy scribbling on the birth certificate form to notice the shift in the air. I forced myself to speak, my voice weak but firm. "What do you mean?" I whispered to the nurse. Her eyes flicked to Mark, then back to me. "Not here," she muttered. "But trust me, you need to know." A chill ran down my spine. I looked at Mark, who was still oblivious, and something inside me snapped. I had spent years being the quiet, understanding wife, the reasonable one, the one who let things go. Not anymore. "You're not naming her after your mother," I said, my voice suddenly stronger. Mark stopped writing and looked at me like I had just slapped him. "Excuse me?" "She is our daughter," I said through gritted teeth. "We agreed on a name. You don't get to change it without me." His jaw tightened. "My mother, I don't care." I had never seen Mark truly angry at me before. Annoyed? Sure. Frustrated? Plenty of times. But this was different. His face twisted, and in a low, cold voice he said, "You don't get a say. After everything I've done for you? You should be grateful I'm even letting you put your last name on the certificate." I felt like I had been punched. The nurse sucked in a sharp breath. "Oh, hell no," she muttered. Mark wasn't done. "If you don't like it, maybe you shouldn't have been so difficult during the pregnancy. You had one job, to carry my baby. You don't get to decide things. That's my right." Something inside me shattered. And then the nurse did something I never expected. She snatched the clipboard right out of Mark's hands. "You will not speak to her like that." Mark's head snapped toward her, shock flashing across his face. What the hell? But the nurse wasn't listening. She flipped the papers over and stared at him. "You're lucky she doesn't know the whole story yet," she said coolly. And just like that, I knew. He had been hiding something. I looked at Mark. He had gone pale. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing," he said too quickly. She's just lying, the nurse cut in. I don't think so. Mark's eyes flicked between us, his whole body tensing. Then the nurse leaned down, lowered her voice and whispered, "You should check the insurance records." It took me a second to process what she said. But when I did, it hit me like a train. Mark had been the one handling the insurance paperwork throughout my pregnancy. I had trusted him to take care of it. I never questioned it. Why would I? Unless. I turned to him, my throat dry. "Mark, what did you do?" His hands clenched into fists. Nothing, but there was sweat on his forehead now. His breathing had changed. He was nervous. The nurse exhaled sharply, shaking her head. I've seen this before. Women come in thinking everything is fine, trusting their husbands to handle everything. And then? They find out they're not even listed as the primary parent. I went cold. Mark shot up from his chair. "We're leaving." I ignored him. "You changed my insurance records?" My voice was shaking. "I did what I had to do," he snapped. "You don't understand. Then make me understand." Silence. The nurse folded her arms. "Do you want me to pull the records?" "Because I can. Right now." Mark's face twisted into pure rage. He turned to me. "You're not doing this. You just gave birth. You're hormonal. You're not thinking straight." But I was thinking straight. And I knew, without a doubt, he had screwed me over. Mark grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm. "We're not doing this here." I yanked my arm away. "You don't control me." His jaw twitched, and for the first time, I saw it real fear. Not anger. Fear. The nurse turned to me. "Do you want to see the records?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Mark let out a bitter laugh. "Fine. You want the truth? You were never supposed to see them." The room felt smaller. The nurse gave me a look. "Let me go get them." She walked out, leaving me alone with Mark. I stared at him. "You're going to tell me what's going on. Right now." He ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand how hard this has been for me. My mom, your mom, she wanted me to handle everything." She said. He stopped, inhaled sharply. I waited. "She said she knew what was best for the baby," he finally admitted. "She said you were too emotional, too soft. That I had to take control." I felt sick. "So you, what? Took me off my own child's insurance? Made yourself the only legal guardian?" Mark didn't answer. That was all I needed to know. The nurse came back with a folder. She set it on my lap and opened it for me. And there it was. Mark had listed himself as the sole parent. My name was nowhere. My entire body went cold. "You were planning to take her from me." Mark didn't deny it. "I thought I was going to be sick." The nurse's voice was like steel. "You're lucky I caught this. I've seen women lose custody of their own babies because of things like this." Mark stood up. "You're overreacting." I shook my head. "I'm done." He laughed, an actual laugh, like I was a joke. "What, you think you can just leave? You just had a baby. Where are you going to go?" The nurse put a hand on my shoulder. "She won't be alone." Mark's smirk faltered. And that's when I knew his world was about to come crashing down. Mark's face was a mix of fury and desperation. I could see the gears turning in his head. He thought he could talk his way out of this, that he could manipulate me like he always did. Not this time. I turned back to the nurse. "What do I do now?" She looked at me carefully before saying, "Do you have family nearby? Someone you trust?" I did. My sister, Sophie. She lived about 30 minutes away, and unlike Mark, she actually cared about me. I pulled out my phone to call her, but before I could even dial, Mark snatched it out of my hands. "You're not doing this," he growled. The nurse stepped between us, her voice sharp. "Give it back to her. Now." He hesitated for half a second, then tossed my phone onto the hospital bed. "You're making a mistake," he muttered. I ignored him and called Sophie. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, how are you? How's the baby?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My throat felt tight, like if I spoke, I'd break down completely. The nurse took the phone from me and spoke instead. "Hi, Sophie. This is Nurse Claire from the hospital. Your sister needs you here immediately." Sophie didn't even hesitate. "I'm on my way." Mark let out a bitter laugh. "Really? You're running to your sister? She doesn't even like me." I shot him a look. "Maybe because she saw through your bullshit before I did." His face darkened. "This is ridiculous." The nurse's voice was sharp. "No. What's ridiculous is what you tried to do. And trust me, hospital staff talk. We don't take kindly to men who try to steal their wives' babies." Mark's fist clenched, but he didn't say anything. I turned back to the nurse. "Can we change the paperwork?" She nodded. "Yes. And we're going to document everything. If he tries anything, there will be a legal trail." Mark stiffened. "You're blowing this out of proportion." But he was sweating. He knew he had lost control of the situation. And then, his phone rang. At first, I didn't think much of it. But then I saw the name on the screen. Mom. And just like that, I knew. He hadn't done this alone. His mother was behind this. All of it. Mark declined the call, but I grabbed his wrist before he could put the phone away. You're going to tell me the truth, I said, my voice shaking with rage. There's nothing to tell. The nurse folded her arms. You can either tell her now, or she'll find out when she checks the legal records. Either way, it's over. Mark's eyes flicked to me, then to the baby in my arms. And for the first time, I saw guilt. I had to hear it from his own mouth. What did you do? Silence. I reached for his phone, but he yanked it back. Fine, he snapped. You want the truth? My mother said I had to make sure the baby was legally under my name only. That way, if you ever tried to leave me, you wouldn't be able to take her. The room spun. I tightened my grip on our daughter, my whole body shaking. She said she could get me a lawyer, he continued, his voice bitter. She told me the courts wouldn't favor you because you don't make as much money. That if I played it right, I could get full custody. My stomach twisted. His mother had been planning to rip my baby away from me before she was even born. The worst part? Mark went along with it. I felt like I was going to throw up. Why? I whispered. Why would you do this to me? Mark rubbed a hand over his face. Because you never respected my mother. The room went silent. The nurse sucked in a sharp breath. Oh, my God, she muttered. I laughed. A cold, hollow laugh. You tried to steal my child because I didn't worship your mother? Mark didn't answer. That was all I needed to know. The nurse turned to me. We're going to fix this right now. She grabbed my paperwork and walked out of the room, probably to get the hospital administrator involved. Mark moved toward me. Look, this got out of hand. We can fix it. I held my daughter tighter. There is no we anymore. His face twisted. I am her father. And I am her mother, I shot back. And unlike you, I won't use her as a weapon. His jaw clenched. You're making a mistake. No, I said, my voice firm. The only mistake I made was trusting you. At that moment, Sophie walked in. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. What the hell is going on? Before I could answer, Mark's phone rang again. This time, Sophie snatched it out of his hand. She looked at the screen. It wasn't just his mother calling. There were texts. Lots of them. And when she unlocked the phone, because of course she knew his passcode, she went pale. She turned the screen toward me. And my world tilted again. There were messages between Mark and another woman. I can't wait to see you. Once the baby is here, we can finally be together. She won't have anything left. She'll be stuck. Sophie's face turned red with rage. Are you fucking kidding me? Mark's face went white. I stared at the messages, my vision going blurry. He hadn't just tried to steal my daughter. He had been planning to leave me for someone else. While I was pregnant. While I was carrying his child. I felt a calmness settle over me. A dangerous kind of calm. I looked at Mark and whispered, you have no idea what you've just done. Mark lunged for his phone, but Sophie yanked it back. Oh no, asshole, she hissed. You're not getting out of this. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. The texts blurred together, my hands shaking as I scrolled. Mark had been having an affair. Not just a fling. A full-blown relationship. And it wasn't just cheating, it was calculated. She won't have anything left. She'll be stuck. That one text hit me like a bullet to the chest. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about me. This was about control. He had planned to trap me, steal my baby, strip me of my rights, push me into a corner where I had nothing left. And then? He was going to leave with someone else. I felt like I was drowning. My heart pounded in my ears, my body still weak from labor, my newborn daughter asleep in my arms, completely unaware that the man who was supposed to protect her had already betrayed her before she could even open her eyes. I turned to Mark. Who is she? His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sophie scrolled further, her expression darkening. Then she froze. Oh my God. She looked up at me, her eyes wide. You're not going to believe this. She turned the phone around again. And there, staring back at me, was a familiar name. The other woman was his mother's best friend's daughter. The same woman Susan had been pushing him toward for years. The perfect girl. The one she wanted him to marry instead of me. I felt like the world had tilted sideways. This wasn't just about control. This wasn't even just about cheating. This was planned. This was arranged. And Mark had gone along with it. I don't know what broke inside me, but I felt something snap. I stood up, still sore from labor, and shoved the phone against Mark's chest. How long? My voice was deadly calm. Mark was still pale. It's not what you think. Sophie laughed bitterly. Oh, really? Because it looks like you and Mommy Dearest were planning a whole new life without my sister. Mark's jaw clenched. She wasn't supposed to find out like this. I laughed. A sharp, humorless sound. Not supposed to find out like this? I repeated. So I was just supposed to wake up one day and realize my husband had stolen my baby and replaced me? He had the audacity to roll his eyes. You're being dramatic. Something in me ignited. I grabbed the birth certificate paperwork from the hospital tray and ripped it in half. You don't control me. You don't control her. My voice was shaking with rage. And then, the door swung open. And in walked Susan. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on the shredded paperwork in my hands. Then she saw the phone, still open to the messages. She froze. Then, her lips curled. Well, she said smoothly. I suppose there's no point in pretending now. Sophie let out a sound that was half laugh, half disbelief. Are you serious? You're not even going to deny it. Susan smirked. And that was the moment I realized she wasn't even sorry. This wasn't a mistake. This was her plan all along. I turned to Mark. You let her do this. Mark swallowed hard. He still hadn't said anything. Because there was nothing to say. He had betrayed me. Completely. Susan stepped forward, her voice eerily calm. Listen, sweetheart. You need to understand that this is what's best for the baby. I tightened my hold on my daughter. The best thing for my baby is to keep her as far away from you as possible. Susan sighed. Like I was a child throwing a tantrum. You don't have the resources to raise her alone, she said coolly. Be realistic. Mark makes more money. He has stability. You don't. Sophie snorted. Oh, shut the hell up. If you think my sister is going to roll over and let you steal her baby, you're dumber than I thought. Susan turned to Mark. Handle this. And that's when I saw it, hesitation. Mark was wavering. He had spent years under his mother's control. He had done everything she told him to do. But now he was trapped. I leaned in close and whispered, if you go through with this, I will destroy you. He blinked. You don't, I will take you to court. I will expose everything. Your fake insurance paperwork. Your affair. Your attempt to steal my child. I will make sure you never see her again. His eyes flicked to Susan. And for the first time, he didn't look sure anymore. Susan saw it too. Mark, she snapped. She's bluffing. We have the lawyers. I stared right into her eyes. Then I guess we'll see who wins. Silence. Then, Mark cracked. He turned to his mother and said, Mom, I can't do this. Susan stiffened. Excuse me? Mark's voice was barely a whisper. I didn't think it would get this far. Susan's face twisted with rage. Don't be stupid. We talked about this. Mark looked at me, then at the baby in my arms. He took a step back. I can't, he said again. Susan lost it. After everything I did for you, you're going to throw it all away for her. Mark flinched. And right then, I knew I had won. Not because Mark had suddenly grown a conscience, but because he was weak. And for once, his mother wasn't the one pulling the strings. Susan stormed out, furious. Mark didn't follow her. Sophie called our lawyer cousin and had him rushed to the hospital. With the nurse's documentation, we legally corrected the paperwork, making sure I had full custody. Mark didn't fight it. I think deep down, he knew he had already lost. A few days later, I left the hospital with my daughter. Mark didn't come home with us. And Susan? She tried to contact me. She even showed up at my apartment once, trying to talk. I didn't let her in. Sophie called the cops. Eventually, she stopped trying. Mark moved out. I filed for divorce. And as for the other woman, she dumped him the second she realized he had nothing left to offer. It took me a long time to process what had happened. To accept that the man I had loved, the man I had married, had been planning to destroy me. But now, holding my daughter, I knew one thing for sure. I had won. Not in some petty revenge way. Not in a way that made the pain disappear. But I had escaped. And Susan? She had lost. She had tried to build the perfect life for her son, and now? She had nothing. And I had everything that mattered.